Hey y'all, it's September. I took a couple of weeks off. I personally, ego needed to finish the summer with a bang, with some rest, with some reward, with some personal things. So I took some time off. If the ego doesn't have the will to make a video, we don't make a video. No offense, YouTube algorithm, but I'm here for me. I work for me. I don't work for you. If you pay me, great. But I'm here because I work for me. Ego took some time off. I'm back. I'm ready. I'm swinging. And it feels appropriate to start with like a back to school topic. Whenever the kids go back to school, there's a little bit of a refresher on the year before to get them geared up for the new stuff that they're gonna learn. So today I'm gonna do something that is either gonna feel like a refresher for a lot of you, or it's gonna feel like a very gentle, like, welcome to some beginner basics of human design. I want today's lesson to be a very rudimentary lesson on centers. I want to very lightly touch on them. I want to tell you what each center does, what its not self theme is, an example of how this is going to show up in your life, and maybe something else will come out for each one. I'm not going to have this is me making the plan in the moment for the video. Very existential. What am I needing to transmit today? I feel the need to touch on something simple, digestible, practical, and honestly just really, really helpful. Every center in the body graph is either going to serve one or a variety of functions depending on what type of center it is. So if we're going to start with the head center is a pressure center. I think it's really important to cover what kind of center it is, because when you're going to look at the not self theme, if you're looking at the not self theme through the lens of what the center does, it helps you understand a lot more about what that not self message is. So the not self of the head is pressure to know the answer. Pressure to know the answer. You see that you're under pressure to know the answer when you get stuck questioning things that don't matter, okay? So we have a head center, it's a pressure center, and it puts you under pressure to try and find the answer to things that don't matter. What happens when this not self runs away from you? When I say runs away, I mean like it's doing a thing and you feel like you're kind of along for a ride. And when I say it's doing a thing, let's call that thing anxiety. It's giving you anxiety and you're along for a ride with your head center. How do you get off of this anxiety-inducing ride? Strategy and authority. You're gonna be bored of me saying that by the time we get to the end, because that's how I'm gonna end every center. Strategy and authority. If you're afraid of the not self here, get back into your strategy and authority. If I start to panic, what if I don't know the answer? What if I don't know the answer? What if I'm not right? I'm gonna get really anxious. I'm gonna be distracted. I'm gonna feel floaty. I'm gonna feel out of my body. Out of your body is a really good phrase to get used to, like recognizing in yourself. When you feel out of your body, in many ways what you're really acknowledging is that you feel out of yourself. You feel out of your authority. You feel out of your true nature. Okay, now we're gonna move into the ajna, which is one of 3 different awareness centers. In our evolution over time, it was the second awareness center to evolve. Now, when this is undefined, there's a stronger likelihood that a not self tendency is going to show up. What is the not self of the undefined ajna? It's feeling like you have to be sure, you have to be certain. The undefined ajna is going to tell you that there's no room for doubt. Now, that can be paralyzing in the world that we live in. We live in a world that prioritizes rational, logical, mental processing. And that's what the ajna is going to tell you that you need to do. And it'll tell you that you are just wrong in general, wrong for even existing if you're not sure about something, if you have doubt about something. God forbid you have an undefined ajna and a defined solar plexus. You know, we can see how these things start to compound a little bit. You know, the solar plexus waiting for clarity and the undefined ajna going, am I sure I have it yet? Am I sure I have it yet? Am I sure I have it yet? It's important to acknowledge that the ajna is never anybody's authority. There is no need for anybody to be absolutely certain of anything. You know, what the not self tells us is a lie that tries to convince us of something. When it says you need to be certain, you go, oh, I need to be certain. But really, coming to a place of healthy deconditioning here goes, actually, I don't need to be certain. I don't need to eliminate doubt. In fact, I'm not going to be able to be certain. I'm not going to be able to eliminate doubt. I'm gonna have to learn to get comfortable with doubt. And when I feel insecure, I'm gonna have to learn to rely on my strategy and authority to take me where I need to go. The throat center. The throat center has a different level of complexity and gets a different level of attention than the other centers. The not self theme of the undefined throat is trying to attract attention, trying to attract attention. And really what the not self is doing is saying, this is how you validate your existence. This is how you validate your worth. This is how you feel like you matter or feel like you're important. It tells you that you need to acquire certain things. You know, the not self will say, if no one's paying attention to you, you're not important. If no one's paying attention to you, you don't have any value. You know, the not self throat, without its consistent definition there, is always going to go, is anybody listening? Can anybody hear me? Is anybody listening? Can anybody hear me? Does anybody listen to me? Do I have a voice? Does my voice matter? And so much of our worth and our identity really does get trapped in whether or not we think people want to listen to us. The undefined, the throat in general is a manifestation center. That's what its function is. But it's really truly only a manifestation center if there's a direct motor to throat tying in with definition. But what I'm talking about is the undefined, an open throat, an undefined throat. The undefined throat goes, I don't have consistency here. I don't have the ability to manifest here. Uh-oh. Does that mean I'm not important? Does that mean I won't have impact? Does it mean I don't have value? Does it mean And suddenly the undefined throat wants to talk a lot in order to get attention. It's really saying, don't forget about me. Don't forget about me. Don't forget about me. But a wise undefined throat isn't trying to get attention. It's not making all these noises to get people to look at them. The undefined throat knows when it's appropriate to be quiet. If you're not sure where you are in your deconditioning journey for the throat, a really good way to self-test is going to be watch how quickly you interrupt other people. Or watch how quickly you even want to interrupt other people. If you're not a good listener and you're constantly chomping at the bit to interrupt somebody and get into a conversation, there's a really good chance that you have some undefined throat deconditioning to do. You know, so far we've acknowledged the head as a pressure center, singular function. Ajna, awareness center, singular function. Throat, manifestation center, singular function. Now we're going to get into the G center, which is an identity center, which again is a singular function. And so what happens with the G center? All about love and direction. An undefined G center thinks it needs to go find love and direction. Go find love and direction. You know, it makes me think of the Dr. Seuss book, Are You My Mother? Because there's a semblance of a baby bird is hopping around and asking all these big animals it runs into, are you my mother? And that's how I always kind of like internalize the voice of the G center, which is like, are you my home? Are you my home? Are you where I belong? Are you my family? You know, the G center is going, can I find where I belong? And yet, in many ways, like we are all designed to wait in some capacity. And I think about this in terms of really being found by the right home. I don't think about me finding my right home. I think about me being found by my right home. I think about me living according to strategy and authority and very, very naturally ending up in the place that is going to feel like home for me. You know, when I think about home, I don't think about a building. I don't think about a relationship. I don't think about these external things the way that I used to. Now when I think about home, I think about this like self-love. I think about belonging home within myself. I think about accepting myself, and I also think about like actually building my own home according to what my whole design needs. You know, like, I'll be honest, I'm gonna think about my environment a lot more than I'm gonna think about, you know, where my G center is trying to go. When I think about home, I think markets internal. Markets internal is my environment. And when I am in my markets environment, I feel home. I feel good. I feel like the right things are gonna be able to find me. And as someone with an undefined G center, if I think like I have to go look for a partner, I have to go look for love, I have to go look for where I want, it feels wrong. It feels like, no, there's already immediate resistance there. I'm going to be found by love. I'm going to be found by my right location. I'm going to be found by my direction as long as I'm following my strategy and authority. It'll find me. Okay, now we're gonna jump into the ego. And I'll be honest, where I actually have definition, it's not as easy for me to speak about the not self. I find the not self to be very easy to talk about because I have 7 undefined centers, but the ego isn't one of them. You know, my deconditioning journey and my ego is different because it comes from a place of definition. In terms of what we were talking about earlier, with center functioning, the ego is still a one function center. It's just a motor. It's just a motor. So we have gotten into a center that has a lot of power because we've gotten into our first motor, but it's not an awareness center. So there is a level of power that doesn't have a level of awareness coming out of it. The ego is one of the newer centers after it's split with the G center. You know, when we were 7-centered and we prioritized a mental functioning, we weren't at the evolutionary place of prioritizing emotional functioning and intelligence. In order to go from 7-centered to 9-centered, we split the G center and we get the G in the ego, and then we develop the solar plexus. And so there is this separation of worth and identity. The ego, if you have an undefined ego, what you're going to be told is that you don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to prove yourself. But I actually notice quite a bit of language come up from people with undefined egos where there's a little bit of a distortion of the not self phrase. Because when people hear, you don't have to prove, what I notice is that they actually attach definition from other centers to this. Like, you don't have to prove that you're certain or prove that you know the answer. And I go, well, we're using ego language, but we're really talking about the ajna or the head in these circumstances. You know, proving that I'm certain is really just talking about the not self of the ajna while using the ego's language. Because then you could say, prove in front of any of the centers, not selves. And it creates a distortion of what the ego is really trying to prove or not. Okay, the spleen is not knowing when to let things go, but the spleen is an awareness center. And in terms of awareness centers, it's the first one. So our evolution started with the spleen, which is the awareness for survival in the now. And what the spleen is really saying is it healthy to let this go? Is it healthy to pick this up? But almost always it's saying, when can I let this go? When can I let this go? When can I let this go? So the undefined spleen doesn't know when to let things go. It might not know when to let go of an unhealthy partner. It might not know when to let go of unhealthy things in the household, an unhealthy mindset, an unhealthy physical habit, but without knowing when to let it go, there's a tendency to hold on to things significantly longer than is good for us. A very, very classic undefined spleen problem is hoarding. Being surrounded by objects, being surrounded by things, really being kind of like clogged up and gunked up, you know, when there's not ease of movement, when there are consistent obstacles. It's like, when I think about the spleen governs the lymphatic system. The splenic center governs the lymphatic system. And I think about this need for fluid to be able to travel across my whole body very, very easily. And then I think about somebody's like hallway in their house with boxes stored up and clogged. And I think of myself trying to move through this house as like the lymph fluid trying to move through a body. There's blockages, there's problems, there's clogs, there's like, to me, it is so literal to see the cleanliness of someone's house and the cleanliness of the inside of someone's body, which is totally a Magic School Bus moment. Very Magic School Bus. Really liked that show. You could probably tell as a child. Spleen, awareness center. Keep it healthy, keep it clean. Learn when to let things go and do it according to strategy and authority. Okay, let's move into the sacral center because this is our last singular functioning center. The sacral center is pure motor. Pure motor. And of all of the other centers in the body graph that the sacral could connect to, it's really important to acknowledge it doesn't connect to the ego. Why doesn't the sacral center connect to the ego? Because the sacral center, the wisdom of the undefined sacral center is knowing when enough's enough. Knowing when to quit. If you were to plug an ego into the sacral center, it wouldn't quit. It would go and go and go and go and go and go and then die. No awareness, nothing but pure motors. And it would go until it died, it wouldn't quit. So it's really important for me as an ego being. Really glad that I'm not directly plugged into a sacral center. Sacral center, pure motor, pure power. It governs the ovaries and testes. It lives a life in response. Respond with energy, respond with energy, respond with energy. As a undefined sacral center, I am a non-energy type. If you have an undefined sacral center, it's not that you don't make any energy, it's that you have no consistent fertile sacral energy. No consistent fertile sacral energy. I don't have any of that. So I have a very different way of having to learn when enough's enough, because I do not have a consistent generative fertile energy. I'm here to learn how not to work. As in, really, I'm here to work smarter, not harder. In fact, that's really what projectors in general are here for, is to help everybody on the planet work smarter, not harder. We're here for energy efficiency. So learning the wisdom of the undefined sacral center is one of the most important things that I'm gonna do for myself. And on top of that, it's one of the most important things I'm gonna do for you, because learning the transformation possible in each undefined center, that's one of the greatest things that anybody in human design can offer to somebody else in human design. If there is some advanced understanding, some wisdom in how things work, it is our job to understand that, go through that transformation, and then be guides or role models to people who also need to learn this. If I can figure out how not to overwork, how not to burn myself out, if I can really figure out when enough's enough, then I can help other people figure that out too. That's a transformation I'm learning so that I can help you do the same. I'm gonna go down to the root center. The root center, which was not originally called the root center, by the way. It was originally called the center at the base of the spine, which is mouthy. It's wordy. That's a long one. Thanks, Rob. Thank you for changing the name of that to the root center. Okay, so the root center, now we're into a place where we have multiple functions happening, because the root is the bottom half of what's happening in the head. When that head is pressure, 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 and a little anxiety inducing, the root is the same thing. Pressure, pressure, pressure. One of them drops in like inspiration, like, ooh, I had a thought and I have pressure to engage with this mental activity or get anxiety. The root is like pressure, pressure. It literally gets you up off your butt. Get up off your butt, pressure. Pressure to move forward, move forward. That's what the root is always trying to do. Take a step, move forward, go cross something off your list. Go do more, which honestly, it sounds very similar to the sacral center, not knowing when enough's enough. But really, the root center is slightly more nuanced. The pressure to be free. Trying to get rid of the pressure so that you can be free. And what it really is saying is, if I get everything crossed off my to-do list today, then I can go chill. But that's not how the root center works. You cross everything off that to-do list and it's gonna go, we could put a few more things on the list. We could do more. We could get a little more done. Just add a few things. Because then we can get a jump start on tomorrow's list and then next week's list and then... Don't let your not self control the timing of your life. Strategy and authority, strategy and authority, strategy and authority. The root is always going to put you under pressure, and it's motorized pressure. Motorized pressure, okay? It's going to try and have you do a lot. In fact, when you have a lot of root stimulation energy, there's a good chance if you lay down to go to sleep and your feet are rubbing together, a little too jacked in the root center, I'm guessing. Move it up. Find a way to get it out of your body. Maybe that's some type of explosive adrenalized energy activity. Almost missed a word there. But you're gonna have to move the energy out of your body. Doesn't mean you have to go do a whole bunch of to-do list things. Maybe you need to go do 10 jumping jacks and then you'll chill out. Either way, we're talking about motorized pressure here. Let's get the last one out. The most complex of all of them, the solar plexus. We saved this one for last because y'all probably needed a bit of a warm-up to get to this one. The solar plexus is by far as I'm concerned, I'm not quoting source material here, I'm telling you from my own opinion, solar plexus is by far the most complicated center. And when it comes to multifunctioning, not only is it a motor, so huge power, but it's an awareness center, and it's our last awareness center. We had the spleen, then we had the ajna, and now we're moving into the solar plexus. And the solar plexus is not done its development. Solar plexus development is supposed to end for 2027. Then it's a mutated center. It's done its thing. So while it's still in the sense of mutation, it's still finishing its potential. There's so many things still happening here. You know, a lot of the other centers are complete and ancient, whereas the solar plexus, we're talking about awareness that people don't really have yet. Emotional awareness is not a common thing on the planet. That is the point of our incarnation right now. That's the point of the communion that we're trying to have. Can we get to a place of truth and confrontation? Can we get to a place of emotional intelligence? And so there is this awareness center that's finishing its development, and also there's an assumption that because it's a motor, that it's a very, very powerful center that's giving you energy. But it's my understanding that the amount of energy required just to run the solar plexus center, it's almost more of like a self-sustaining motor. The energy it makes, it needs. It's not using a lot of this energy to fuel the body like the sacral center is going to do. It's not the same kind of energy as sacral energy. It's an energy that it needs to use for itself. It's creating a lot, but it's using a lot. The solar plexus requires a lot of energy to process. It totally died. I plugged in a back battery. I got 3%. We got 3% to finish this video. The solar plexus, we're still very much learning what it's capable of, but the not self is avoiding truth and confrontation. And I can tell you, the fear of truth and confrontation is so much worse than actually getting through the truth and confrontation. And if you're going, truth and like afraid of what? Afraid to confront what? Anytime you're afraid to have a conversation with somebody because of how they might feel, how they might react, that's being afraid of truth and confrontation. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to go aggressively confront and go after everything in your life. You know, again, strategy and authority. But a healthy, undefined solar plexus isn't avoiding the hard conversations. They're not. And they're also not avoiding people that bring up strong emotions in them, that bring up, you know, the want to have a hard conversation. I got about 2 seconds to wrap this up before it all dies. I hope that you got some value out of this. This was a very quick touch on the not self of the undefined centers, what the functioning of the center is and how that plays into it. A couple little words on each one. That was a great introductory thing. Thanks for hanging out. I'll hopefully see you next week.